From training to performing, join our big league conversation. Welcome to the CSP Elite Baseball Development Podcast with your host, Eric Cressey.
Welcome back to the CSP Elite Baseball Development Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Cressey, and this is episode 28. This is going to be an awesome show because we have one of the absolute best rehabilitation and return to action stories of Major League Baseball the last few years. And I think it's going to be awesome, not just because it's an inspiring story, but also because there's a lot of actionable strategies that any arms out there who are rehabilitating can really draw some really important lessons from. So I'm really excited for today. This episode is brought to you by Athletic Greens. It's an all-in-one superfood supplement with 75 whole food sourced ingredients to support your body's nutritional needs across 5 critical areas: energy, immunity, gut health, hormonal support, and healthy aging. I'm an avid user of Athletic Greens myself, in spite of the fact that I tend to be a supplement minimalist. To me, this is a product that is much more like whole food nutritional insurance as opposed to a true supplement. The ingredients have been carefully selected at the highest quality, most natural source. You get essential vitamins and minerals, digestive enzymes, prebiotics, probiotics, and that's the zero compromise approach from the company. It's plant-based, sourced from whole foods at the highest quality, so you won't find harmful chemicals, artificial colors or flavors, preservatives, or added sugar. Really, it's perfect for folks who are gluten and dairy free, paleo, keto, vegan friendly, great for people who are intermittent fasting, all that fun stuff. Personally, I love it for obviously our athletes who don't get enough nutritional benefits from fruits and vegetables because they don't eat enough. So it's a way to kind of plug in holes in diets. But also, I really like it for our college and professional athletes who may have complex travel schedules where quality food options aren't always at hand. On a personal level, I'm a husband, father of 3, and an entrepreneur. We split our time between 2 states, and I'm also still an avid lifter. So life is inherently crazy, and it can be stressful, and sleep deprivation is definitely something that we encounter. So I rely on Athletic Greens for part of my immune support, and believe firmly that it's made a big difference in keeping me healthy in spite of how crazy our lifestyle is. They've got a great offer in place. If you head to athleticgreens.com/Cressey, they'll get you 20 free travel packets with your purchase. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/Cressey, CRESSEY, and you can claim your special offer. Today's guest is a relief pitcher for the Washington Nationals. Originally from the state of Indiana, he attended Wabash Valley College for 2 years and then transferred to the University of Mississippi. He was drafted 4 times in 2006, 2008, 2009, and 2010 by the Dodgers, Twins, Rangers, and Nationals, respectively. He signed with the Nationals, worked his way up through the minor leagues, and made his major league debut in 2014, where he established himself as a mainstay in the Nationals bullpen. The following year, he had Tommy John surgery, and as you'll learn in today's podcast, it developed into one of the more compelling rehabilitation and comeback stories in recent years in Major League Baseball, as he just returned to the big leagues here in 2019. Please welcome to the podcast, Aaron Barrett.
Welcome to the show, Aaron.
Hey, thanks for having me.
This is going to be a lot of fun. It's the story of the year in Major League Baseball, and I personally have gotten to know you obviously in a different capacity than a lot of the other media that have probably heard your story and stuff, just because we have so many guys who have come through the national system and being close by to the spring training complex. So I can't even begin to do justice to your story. You have to tell it. So let's maybe start with the Tommy John and then talk about what the last 4 years has been.
Yeah, it's been kind of a crazy road for the last 4 years. Basically, made it to the big leagues in 2014. Started to establish myself as a pretty good reliever, decent. Trying to make a name for myself, and obviously in 2015, my workload was really high. Just trying to be a guy to be counted on. Just wanted the ball every day, and unfortunately, it kind of caught up to me, and ended up getting an MRI at the end of 2015. After I went on the DL for the first time in I think July, I was hot off the mound 45 of the first 60 games. And I think it eventually just kind of caught up with me. So I got an MRI and had a 90% tear with about 6 floating bone chips. And so I started that, Dr. Andrews did my Tommy John. That would have been in, September 3rd of 2015. And then come back from that, I thought the Tommy John process was, compared to my neck surgery that I had, I thought the Tommy John process was kind of a cakewalk in comparison. Not saying that it wasn't hard by any means, because it was definitely tough.
Refresh my memory. Weren't there some like interesting things? Didn't you break some drill bits during your Tommy John?
No, that was the second surgery.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
I got out of
yeah,
whack. All right, keep
we'll
going.
definitely get to that.
We'll get to that.
So coming back from the Tommy John, I didn't have any setbacks at all. Everything was literally to protocol. It was hitting every milestone. I was going to be back, right at a year, maybe a year and a month, somewhere right in there. And I had a one pitch or a 20 pitch sim game, and it was a week before I went on my major league rehab assignment. Before then, I was going to get back with the team around probably sometime in September when rosters expanded. Just a four-seam fastball away. Just did everything the same like I normally would. Went to throw, and literally next thing I know, my arm felt like it exploded in half, and I don't know where the ball went. They said the ball kind of went straight up, and I just remember it was hands down the most excruciating pain that I've ever experienced in my life. I've never had a broken bone before. So for that to be my first broken bone, it definitely was quite an experience. I just remember screaming at the top of my lungs and went into shock, and just kind of, like I said, I don't remember a whole lot from the day. They said that I just questioned, like, why, why, and it's hard to kind of put myself back in that spot, because it was such a gut-wrenching day, to experience that. And I get rushed to the ER, and the ER doctor, I'm in full uniform, just sweating, and they immediately, put pain meds in me and tried to numb the pain, and it didn't really work. And I remember the ER doctor was like, what'd you do? And I was like, I was throwing a baseball. I'm pretty sure I broke my arm. And he's like, no way. There's no way you could do that. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I just did, buddy. And so he got the x-ray, and they sent it off to Dr. Andrews, and Andrews immediately calls. It's like, oh my God, is he okay? Like, what did he do? Get in a car crash? And they're like, no, he just threw a baseball in it. And he couldn't believe it. As a lot of other people couldn't believe it either. Yeah. So they rushed me up to, it was actually happened on a Friday. So I couldn't see Dr. Andrews till Monday. So I just had to basically wear it for 2 days. Just fill me up with pain meds, basically. Yeah. We made the trip up, on Sunday, on Sunday. Surgery was supposed to last 3 hours. It ended up lasting 5.5 because, and here's the part of the story you like, my bone was apparently so hard that when they were drilling the screws into my arm, the drill bits would actually break off in my bone. So they had to replace the drill bits all 16 times, which doesn't make any sense.
And that's where it's such a unique injury, in the sense that obviously you don't see it a lot, but at the same time, when you see a fracture like this, you think the bone is weak. And in fact, a lot of people instantly start to wonder, like, is it bone cancer? Is there something like that? But you fractured a really, really strong bone.
Yeah. And then the other thing too is where the fracture was, it was low, because you usually get a high humerus break, in most humerus breaks. So it was a low humerus break. And it's weird because they thought that, maybe a lot of fractures happen from the screw holes from the Tommy John, and it was unrelated to that. Yep. And the fact that my Tommy John didn't go with it, that was unique as well. And then, it's just, we did bone density scans. We did blood work. I had a blood specialist check out my blood to make sure there were no abnormalities in my blood from my bone. That was all completely normal. So I tried to question and try to get answers. I saw biomechanists. I saw, you name it. I reached out to anyone I could think of to, including yourself,
Yeah, I
like,
remember
hey,
talking.
how did this happen? Why did this happen? And it was just a huge question mark. Just they labeled it as a freak thing, and
Mhm.
it was really hard for me to accept that because I wanted to know, why did it happen on that one pitch? Why did it, for the amount of torque to use to snap your arm like that?
Yeah.
Did I do something wrong? So that was really tough to swallow.
Mhm.
So I started that comeback story.
Well, before you get to it, tell us
Yeah.
about what. So I've seen the X-ray. It's the most incredible X-ray I've ever seen. Tell us what is in your arm in terms of hardware.
Yeah, so they had they opened up the Tommy John a little bit more, and they had to put a plate on the inside of the arm, right above the elbow, and then they had to put another plate on the other side, and then they basically put 16 screws to hold it together.
Mhm.
It kind of looks like a jigsaw puzzle in there, just an absolute mess
Mhm.
of hardware in there. So it's quite a picture.
Absolutely. And then, so yeah, give us a feel for like the rehab starts immediately. Obviously, what did it look like?
Well, I think a lot of everyone didn't really. I mean, after this, it was just one of those things where I don't think anyone, throwing a baseball was not on the radar at
Yeah.
all. I think it was just one of those things where, hey, let's just get them be a normal human being again.
Yeah.
Let's just rehab. So we just started the rehab process, just trying to get full range of motion and strength back.
Mhm.
And I really, like I said, throwing a baseball was not on the radar
Yeah.
at all for a long time.
Mhm.
We had to make sure the bone healed all the way up first before we could do anything. And that took a year, a whole year. I had to do Forteo shots
Yep.
in the stomach, and I also had to do the bone stimulator. I did that for
Yep.
a long, long time to try to help heal that bone a little bit. I mean, I
Yep.
was on supplements, all types of stuff, to try to get that bone to heal as fast as I could.
Mhm.
So it took a whole year for the bone to heal, and once the bone finally healed, then it was like, well, I guess just try and play catch. And it did not go over very well.
Mhm.
Those first few months of playing catch was not good. I remember specifically, I was playing catch with Troy Jones, our
Yeah.
PT in Atlanta, who rehabbed
Yep.
Johnny Venters and a bunch of other guys, and
Yep.
started playing catch. And I remember one day I ripped a bunch of scar tissue on the outside of my arm, and it basically it irritated that whole radial nerve,
Yep.
and it was miserable. I just remember there were so many days where I was throwing and I had no clue where my arm was. I couldn't tell you where my hand placement was, if I was getting my hand inside my elbow, if my hand was even over my head. I had no clue.
Mhm.
And I actually sought out another physical therapist that helped me. His name's Seth Oberst. He actually helped me kind of try to connect my brain and my arm
Mhm.
together again. It was a lot of psychological stuff. I mean,
Yep.
because the amount of trauma that I had,
True.
basically, when I went to throw a baseball, my brain told me, hey, don't do that, because the last time you did that, you broke your arm.
Yeah.
So I basically had to train myself from day one how to throw a baseball again, like I was 3 years old.
Wow. And so you started throwing, you said, about a year post-op, and then, so that takes you well into 2016. When was the time where it was like, all right, this is starting to feel good, where I can actually start to ramp up and test some arm speed?
Yeah. So yeah, to 2016. And then it took so that took a whole year. So that would push me into 2017.
Mhm.
And I would say, honestly, probably not until June, July range,
Yeah.
honestly, until it started to feel somewhat decent. I mean, even my range of motion still, like, just because of the hardware I have, I can't
Yeah.
get full extension.
Yeah.
So I'll never have the full range of mobility that I once had. but once, around July, started, doing some it basically, we kind of started the Tommy John, program all over him because no one's really ever done this before. So we just we make it up as we go, so to speak, which was also frustrating because I had no one to talk to. I had no one, I couldn't call Straws up and be like, hey man, how'd you feel on week 2 after, so that was really, really tough as far as being on an island, so to speak, not having anyone to reach out to.
Sample size of one is never comforting.
Yeah. So once we started that process, it started feeling somewhat, okay. And I think I ended up getting up to 120 feet by the end of 17, and we shut it down. And then, so started up, went into 2018, showed up, I was at the early camp is what they call it for the minor leaguers. So I was the oldest guy at early camp, all these prospects and whatnot. Yep. And here I am, 30 years old at early camp. And I got off the mound for the first time. That would have been in February. And that was kind of the first, the first milestone was obviously throwing a baseball. Then the next one was getting off the mound for the first time. And that was, fortunately, Dave Martinez was there, our skipper now. He got to watch it, and so that was cool that he came out and he didn't know who I was, but obviously heard the story. So I got off the mound, and then from there just kind of did the Tommy John kind of protocol again. Tried to build up, do all the sides, do all the bullpens, and build the arm strength up, and I was able to stay down in extended spring training and pitched probably about 25 innings. Got to face Daniel Murphy and Mark Reynolds for literally 30 at bats. It felt like. So that was cool. But stuff wasn't there. But I was just trying to get in the groove. And after that, they sent me to a short season, and I finished up my season there. It was just the best way that they could, manage my innings and make sure that I felt good. And that was pretty cool, just being able to pitch again and pitch in some games and try and compete and see where I'm at. And then I was a free agent at the end of 18. And so I signed back with the Nats because obviously, they put all this time and effort rehab in, and I felt like that was the best scenario for me to come back. And if, if I'm going to make this comeback, I really want to do it with the Nats. So 2019, go my first big league camp, get my first big league appearance and camp. And, it was cool that all the guys stayed around and stuck in the dugout, and they gave me a big standing ovation after I threw my first pitch. That was really cool.
I was there. I was at that game. That was a fun night at the park in West Palm.
Man, it was so cool. And so, they sent me to Double A because we have an interesting dynamic now with our AAA being in Fresno, California. So they sent me to Double A, and fortunate I was able to close all year in Harrisburg, which put me in the highest leverage possible situations at Double A. So I had a lot of fun, and we ended up clinching a playoff spot. And I had a pretty good year, and they decided to purchase my contract on September 3rd. And I think, if you've seen the story that, there's a video that went viral, and so it's been crazy, man. It really has.
Well, and crazy, well deserved too. There's a lot of things that, you can ask in a story like that. The first one I'm going to ask is on the actual, arm speed side of things. You get back off a mound, but it's not 94. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where, first you got to be 75 and pain free. How did the arm speed kind of change for you over the course of time from the day you got off the mound until, obviously getting back to, being consistently in the low 90s now? Was it baby steps, or was there one big breakthrough, or was it just consistently trying to find a way to tick it up a little bit, every couple weeks?
I think ultimately, it definitely was a slow process. Last year I think I was around 88, and I think it became a little mental, honestly, and as you know, the older you get, you start losing mobility, and, you gotta, in order to move fast, you gotta train fast, you gotta move your arm fast, and that's how you throw hard. And I think, 4 years of rehab, you kind of lose that in a sense, and I wasn't able to really do a whole lot, especially with my right arm. So I think it was more once I was finally able to really like let it go, like
Mm-hmm.
it's go time, I think it just kind of gradually got better.
Yep.
And, I think, even early this year it was in the low 90s. And then, eventually it just kind of started clicking mechanically wise, arm speed wise. I started hitting some 94s. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why I knew, like, okay, like it's in there, it's
Yep.
back. Like, you don't have to worry about it anymore. And it's just one of those things that I think I just have to stay on top of and just be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, I think I just got to continue to move the arm fast and just keep getting better.
I talk a lot about, like the concept of good days and bad days with our younger guys who are going through Tommy John, where they put a lot of pressure on themselves, right? So like if you look at Max, you look at Steven Strasburg, or any of those other guys that are making starts in the big leagues for the Nationals, they're going to make 33 starts if they're fully healthy, but they're going to have 3 or 4 clunkers in there that just aren't good outings, right? So if that's the case, 10% of the time you're not going to feel perfect, whether it's because something's aching or it's because, you just don't have your best stuff. And you're going to have more than that during a rehab protocol. So did you find that there was like a turning point in terms of timeline after the surgery where you stopped having those bad days every third day and instead they became every 10th day or something like that?
Yeah, I think the more that I threw and the more outings I got in, it got better. I mean, especially the first month of the season, I hadn't gone back to back yet. I hadn't gone 2 innings yet. And I mean, there were times where I would throw and the next day just like, man, like, and I couldn't tell if it was either from the lifting or if it was from just the added torque. You start getting more more game speed, and that first month was just a little shaky. And I think the more it could be mental, it could be physical as well. Especially the way I throw my slider, the way I throw my two seam. Just getting those muscles of fire and be used to it again. I think as I got into like the third month of the season, I noticed I started being used more and more. I was going, almost every other day and then going back to back. And it just felt like the more that I threw, the stronger I got and the better I felt.
Yeah. Did you have anything that you changed in terms of like give us a feel for what like recovery protocols work for you? Like, are you a soft tissue guy? Are you, Mark Pro? Are you, heated up before you throw? What do you like to utilize?
It definitely, I think it depends on the day. I definitely I'm a firm believer of soft tissue work for sure. I got some soft tissue work in the other day, and my plate on my outside actually goes a little bit past the joint line on the outside of my elbow. So for whatever reason, I'll actually get some discomfort along my extensor muscles.
Okay.
Just because, and it's just something I'm going to have to deal with. It's one of those things, and dry needling for me really does the trick, especially if I'm getting real tense in those areas. I'll do some cupping. I mean, you kind of name it. I kind of done it in a sense.
Absolutely.
I've kind of tried it all.
Absolutely. And will you change your pregame stuff? Like, does it take longer to get hot now, or do you feel like you've gotten back to where you were in that context?
I kind of feel like I've gotten back to where I was. I'll definitely, my routine's definitely changed a little bit. I'll do some band work or I'll do some sort of like med ball throws just to get my body moving a little bit better when it comes to that. But I feel like where I was back then compared to where I was now, I'm pretty dang close as far as what it takes for me to warm up. The one thing I have learned is definitely how many throws I need to warm up.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of comes in time as you've gone through it before, you've done it. How many throws you need, those dry humps, those are the things that really add up, especially at the big league level.
Absolutely. So we talked like a little physiology, and I'm really curious about actually maybe a little bit more the mentality aspect of it is, everyone talks about how you're supposed to take it one day at a time when you're rehabbing, but 4 years is a long time to rehab, right? Your 1,400 days is a really big deal. So what were your strategies for getting through it? Like, how did you keep from going crazy?
I think ultimately, there for a long time, I questioned kind of why me, why did this happen to me? And I think obviously, my faith in the Lord is one of the largest components of why I'm where I'm at today. Just continue to believe in him and trust in his plan, because I questioned his plan for a long time. And as I'm sitting next to my wife, my little daughter, they're the next biggest reason why I'm at where I'm at. My wife has been absolutely incredible through this whole process. She's my nurse for 2 years. And looking at that different perspective, we welcomed our daughter during this rehab process. I got to go to all the meetings, all the appointments. I got to see her, born firsthand, and that happened during the playoffs. And if I was healthy, then I probably would have missed it. So that gives me a lot of perspective for sure moving forward, and obviously my family, and and then the Nats organization just continues to give me a chance and an opportunity to rehab. They've been first class throughout this whole process. And it's been an incredible journey.
And I talked to guys like you, and I mentioned it like in the Instagram post, is that along the way, you've had like a ton of raving fans, right? And these are like guys that you actually play with, but also, like teammates on the minor league side that, have learned from you along the way. So it's easy to be really cranky when you're rehabbing, particularly when it's for 4 years. How did you remain a great teammate? Were there things that you tried to do along the way to help out the guys around you and just continue contributing even when you were on the DL?
Yeah, it's tough to be positive. And and as you're sitting on the sideline watching all your buddies, have success, and trying to picture yourself, man, I could still be in the big leagues right now, and it's been tough. It's definitely been tough, but I try to keep a positive mindset, and like I said, earlier, you literally try to just go one day at a time. And those days eventually turn into weeks. And I just try to find it within myself to literally just try to, okay, if I can get a little bit better today, ultimately over the span of a week, it's going to be better. And I just try to take that mindset.
Absolutely. So when you go back to the actual initial injury, right? So your workload was very high going into your Tommy John, and you made your debut in 14 and you were good really quickly. So you became someone they relied on, and you obviously pitched into the postseason. So there was a shorter off season and a quick turnaround going into 2015. And ultimately the elbow kind of gave in August, when you were on track for over 70 appearances. That was even with a DL snip for a bicep strain. So, what does the average baseball fan have no idea about when it comes to the stuff that bullpen guys go through? And we all read the nasty things they say on Twitter, but what do they not have any idea about?
I think ultimately, people don't realize that the bullpen is just kind of a revolving door. It's, at the end of the day, they can just get the next guy. But, you want to be able to be the guy that's durable. You want to be the guy that be counted on day in, day out. And that's something that I really took pride in, never wanting to go on the DL, even if I, wasn't at my best. I wanted the ball, I wanted to be the guy to get the guy, runners on base. Hey, I can get out of it. And so I think a lot of people don't understand that, they don't see, I think the usage as far as the dry humps go. When you get up in the 6th, sit down. When you get back up in the 7th, sit down, and then, go in the 8th. And then the next day, if that happens again or you pitch another inning, I think that's where things really add up. And over the course of a season, let's just say you have 70 appearances. Well, you might have been off the mound another 30 at least. And I think that is, that's the deal breaker. I think that some of the fans don't understand, and if you give up a couple hits, a couple runs, you might not realize that, well, that guy warmed up for 2 innings yesterday. And instead of having his A stuff, he's probably got his C stuff because he had to, warm up so much. So that's one of the things I think some of the fans don't really get. They just see the guys that come in and pitch. So it's tough.
Absolutely. And are there lessons there from up and coming relievers, that they need to learn, whether it's how to get hot without totally, using up all your energy and gassing yourself, also like communicating to managers and pitching coaches where you're at? What are the lessons you learned on that front?
For sure. I think communication obviously, is the most important. As you get in this game and you continue to, learn yourself, where you're at, and, obviously communicating with the pitching coach or manager and telling how you feel on a day-to-day basis. But then also, you gotta take care of your body. You can't, you can't get warm up in 3 straight innings and then, not go get soft tissue, not contrast or do whatever you need to do to get your body ready. Those are ultimately you take care of your own self. And that's where it comes, that's where the communication comes in on your part, and also take care of your body, on that side. And then obviously also, knowing, how many warm-up pitches it takes for you to get ready.
Yeah.
I think that's also a large factor as well.
Absolutely. One of the challenges of pitching out of the bullpen is never knowing when you're going to throw. I mean, obviously you got a little bit maybe more consistency as you work back on your rehab side of things and, knowing I'm not going to have to go back to back right away and then eventually would. So, when you are on the big league side of things, how do you structure your in-season throwing and lifting? Like right now we're talking at 12:14, you're playing at Miami tonight. You have no idea whether you're going to pitch tonight. What's your approach to structuring your in-season throwing stuff?
Honestly, I think it's based on workload. Right now, I went from being in Double A and, I was pitching almost every other day, and now, it's kind of we're in a tricky situation right now. Going for a playoff spot, and
Yep.
You got to figure out what makes you successful and
Yep.
what makes you click and what you need. Do you need to be a guy that lifts every other day, or do
Yep.
you only need to get maintenance work? And that's ultimately just figuring out who you are and,
Yep.
figuring out what you need. So right now it's just one of those things where I'm trying to monitor how many throws I need, but at the same time, make sure I'm sharp and get my lifts in when I need to get them in.
Absolutely. So assuming like a 7 p.m. start time, how does your day go? What's your game day routine from the time you get to the field?
Usually, get to the field and, I'll usually start off with I'll immediately go contrast, heat up. I won't contrast all the time, but usually I'll heat it up and, I'll go through a little bit of a warm up session, try to get the blood flow, get the body going a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I'll have some lunch and then do kind of an activation period, like right before throwing program.
Mm-hmm.
Do my throwing program, conditioning, go back in if I need to get any soft tissue work or whatever I need, how I'm feeling that day, I'll get that done. Mm-hmm. And then, then it's BP and get ready for the game.
Absolutely. So when you played at 2 colleges and have seen your share of managers and coaches throughout MILB and Major League Baseball, what are some of the characteristics of the coaches that have been the most impactful for you, both as a healthy player and as someone who's going through the rehab process?
Oh goodness. I mean, there's a long list. I mean, just honestly, like I said, the whole Nationals organization has been incredible. Even my old college coaches, at Wabash Valley and at Ole Miss, Coach Bianco, Coach Lafferty, and Coach Fournier. I mean, the list is very long. Just trying to think of all the names, the guys that have helped me. Obviously, our rehab coordinator down in Florida, Mark Grader, who I spent 3 years with basically. I mean, and our pitching coaches throughout the system, Mark Tahara and Paul Menhart, who's now our big league pitching coach. He was there when I actually snapped my arm. So for him to now be our big league pitching coach is quite incredible. I have a lot of people to thank along the road, and definitely wouldn't be here without them for sure.
Were there certain characteristics in those coaches that helped you the most? That kept you upbeat or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, overall, I would say most of the coaches that I've had have super positive attitudes, and I think all the positive energy that they give ultimately help me continue to remain positive. And that's a huge thing in a rehab process. Just to continue to stay positive and remain confident that you're going to get through it. It's huge.
Absolutely. And even shifting to the rehab aspect of it is you spent a lot of time in that realm, obviously, between the Nats, working with our good friend Troy Jones, who's a rock star. What are some of the personality traits in rehab folks that have really helped you? I mean, along a long and winding road.
Well, I think that when they put you're putting the work in every single day, and you know they are putting in even more work as far as like they want you to get better ultimately, and they they're grinding just as
Mhm.
much as you are, and they want to see you succeed. And it's just so rewarding for them to see you make those baby steps in your progress,
Yeah.
when you have that first big milestone and then that next big milestone. Being able to have Troy, watch my first game in Atlanta, like being able, for him to be there for that moment. I mean, I think that ultimately makes, being a PT or someone like that, it makes it that much more rewarding when they're able to see you put the work in and it ultimately pays off in the end.
Absolutely. And, I'm curious as to what the next step is for you, right? So you came up a little bit late in September, so you're not eligible for a playoff roster spot, but what do you do, moving forward? What's the next step that you have to take to be successful as this rehab process is over, but at the same time, it shifts to let's be a high performer, for a long time process. What are the things that you have as goals moving forward?
Yeah, obviously, even my last outing wasn't my best one. Definitely, like I said earlier, it's tough. It's one of those things I'm fighting right now, trying to stay sharp, trying to stay ready. I go from pitching every other day to now, just trying to be ready when my name's called. So,
Mhm.
it's definitely, one of those things where I'm just trying to stay focused, trying to stay ready when my name's called.
Mhm.
We're in a situation, we're in a wild card hunt,
Yep.
and we obviously have our guys, and we're trying to win every game possible.
Mhm.
So I'm just trying to put my name out there that I can be trusted when my
Yeah.
name's called, and go out there and get guys out.
Yeah.
Because obviously I'm trying to help take the workload off some of these guys that might need a break, but we're trying to win games at the same time. So just
Absolutely.
trying to just continue the prove that I deserve to be up here
Mhm.
and be a guy, especially
Yeah.
going into next season.
Absolutely. So, like what we do a little lightning round at the end of these podcasts. So, and I'm curious to get your take on this. What advice would you give to a teenage Aaron Barrett?
Oh my goodness. Just to never give up.
Mhm.
Continue to fight the good fight.
Mhm.
Just a teenage me. I was probably pretty insecure, and I didn't really get my work ethic probably till those late teenage years. So my advice to him would be just don't ever give up. You have a dream,
Yep.
just keep going for it, because I know that hard work truly does pay off.
Absolutely. All right. Favorite teammate of all time and why?
Oh man, I have a lot of great teammates. Favorite teammate of all time?
You can name a couple if you want to.
Guys that are coming off the top of my head right now. I mean, I had so much fun my rookie season
Mhm.
in the bullpen. Guys like literally Drew Storen, Tyler Clippard, Craig Stammen, Jerry Blevins, like Jason Worth,
Mhm.
Ian Desmond, Adam LaRoche, like those guys I look up to so much, and they
Mhm.
helped me out so much as far as when I was a rookie.
Yep.
And those guys will always stick out to me as far as being my favorite teammates.
That's an awesome list. Now, what pitchers do you like to watch and why?
Well, it's hard not to idolize a guy like Max Scherzer.
Yep.
Obviously, the tenacity,
Mhm.
the competitive side.
Mhm.
Um, he just brings out a different edge every
Mhm.
single night, and that's a guy that I mean, how do you not want to pitch like him? Go out there and absolutely, you know what you're going to get every single fifth day. And so he's definitely a guy that I definitely love to watch.
That's awesome, man. Well, we've thrown a ton at you, and I know you're preparing for a game, so we're going to let you go. But I wanted to thank you for taking the time to chat with us and share some wisdom and share your story. I know this is going to benefit a lot of guys who are going through tough rehab circumstances.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I have them on Twitter, Instagram. Anybody
Absolutely.
that needs some help moving forward, they take it one day at a time, and good things will happen. They can reach out to me if they need anything at all. And thanks so much for having me on.
That's awesome. Thanks for taking the time, man. Good luck tonight.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the CSP Elite Baseball Development Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd be thrilled if you'd consider subscribing to the podcast and leaving us a review to read on iTunes. We welcome your suggestions for future guests and questions. Just email elitebaseballpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for your continued support, and we'll see you next episode.